kickers are often viewed as not football players or what have you.
I could sense that there were certain people in the building that just, no matter what I did, they were never going to like me. And I was just like, whatever. Most people, I think, realize it just is what it is. This is an important part of the game of football, arguably a top 5 most important position, to the outcome of the game.
I want to know toughest moment when it comes to being an NFL kicker. What was the toughest moment where you missed a kick, lost a game?
Oh, man. I hadn't really fully forgiven myself for that one.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron and Growth podcast with my boy Ryan Harris, and I am your other co-host, Bennie Fowler. Today, we have a special guest, a Super Bowl champion, a 13-year veteran of the NFL, and now an entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and consultant. Stephen Hauschka, welcome to the show, my friend. Man, welcome to the show. It's great to be reconnected with you, man. We got a chance to meet in person. I think, I don't know, maybe was that, that had to be in 2018. We did the NFL Speakers Bureau, and we were both trying to get out of our comfort zone and really learn how to speak and speak on stage. And we had an incredible conversation. And then we reconnected in January of this year. And it's just great to see all the incredible things that you're doing. So this podcast, man, we just want to talk about your leadership journey, number one in sports, and then transitioning out of sports, and then what you're up to now. So, Steve, number one, would just love to know what it's like to be a kicker in the NFL with all of the pressure that is on you. What's it like as a kicker in the NFL, man? Talk to us about that.
Oh, man. I think it's one of the most unique positions in all of sports. You get very few chances, and you can't wait until, you make a couple kicks to feel confident, because those first couple kicks might affect the entire game. So you have to head into the game. You have to really cultivate this confidence and this belief in yourself before you even go out there on the field for the first kick. And so you have to do a lot of mental work to get in this zone where you feel like you're going to go make the kick before you even get out there. And so, name a sport where there's fewer opportunities and more pressure than a football kicker. So the highs and lows are intense, and pulling yourself out of bed after like a game when you cost the team the game is like one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do.
Let's dive into that right there. I want to know toughest moment when it comes to being an NFL kicker. What was the toughest moment where you missed a kick, lost a game, and then how did you handle that?
I guess it only happened a couple times, which is fortunate over 13 years. But jogging off, the first time it happened, I was in my second season with the Ravens, and I was out there, and Brett Favre had just gone down and scored for the Vikings and put the team up 2 points. We were got into field goal range, and they sent me out there, and I remember just feeling kind of frozen. And then Brad Childress, their head coach, called a timeout to ice me. And I don't even know. I wasn't really fully there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't fully there. Kind of jogged out there, kicked the ball. It all happened so quick, and looked up and just watched it go wide left. And my heart just sank. And I was just like, oh my God, And it was I was so tough on myself. It was pretty brutal. And I just I was actually speaking about it recently, and I realized I hadn't really fully forgiven myself for that one. And I actually, it was hard for me to even Google the score of that game and find out some more of the details, because I just kind of blocked it out.
I want to go back in your story, because you're Super Bowl champion, a kicker who's overcome missing kicks and making kicks. But your career as a kicker started from getting cut from Middlebury Soccer. Talk to us about that experience.
So I wasn't actually cut, but it was I was cut because I got there on campus thinking as a freshman, I thought I was going to be playing with the varsity team. And I got there, and they stashed me on the JV team, which was across campus, like totally separate programs. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that I wasn't a recruit. The recruits were heavily favored. So I saw the writing on the wall. I played the JV soccer team that year. My roommate was a football player, and I was actually closer with the football players there at Middlebury. And I thought, hey, I've always wanted to kick a football. Why don't I come out for the football team and try that out next year? I graduated, had a year of eligibility, went to NC State as a graduate transfer and played a year there. And then next thing I know, I'm playing NFL ball 4 years after I put on pads.
It's crazy. That is crazy. Talk a little bit about your journey and winning a Super Bowl in Seattle. I wasn't on the Broncos when you guys beat the Broncos and won a Super Bowl, but I know you're Super Bowl 48 champion. What was that like?
Yeah, so I think the context here is important. So I bounced around a little bit early in my career with the Ravens, the Falcons, went to the UFL and played with the Las Vegas Locomotives, the original Vegas team. And then was signed by Denver, actually was there for like 4 games when Matt Prater was injured in 2010. Was signed by the Seahawks like right after. I was actually in training camp with the Broncos during the lockout, and then the Seahawks signed me at the end of the training camp. And when I got there, like everything just felt different. Like I walked in the doors and everything was like supportive. There was this belief that everyone was going to do well and that I was going to do well. And Coach Carroll just had this infectious enthusiasm that started like where it had already worn on all the players that were there. And like they talked different, like they were like hooting and hollering in team meetings. Coach Carroll was pointing out all the good things that guys were doing. And so it was just this special energy too there with all my teammates were incredible guys on and off the field too. Like, that it was just like a tight knit group. It was, in some ways a bunch of misfits, but we all got along and we were all driven to do something special. I mean, I think in 2012, we were smashing teams at the end of the season, like by 30, 40 points. Most people forget about it because we didn't win the Super Bowl that year. We lost to the Falcons. Then the next year, we just came out with a chip on our shoulder, the entire team, and we just blasted through everybody. We had an incredible year, and we finally overcame the 49ers that year in the NFC Championship. And then it was just like we were on a high and then just killed the Broncos that year.
I want to go back to one thing you mentioned because kickers are often viewed as not football players or what have you. Now, I will contend that is drastically different in the NFL because we depend on you. How did you still show up with confidence and be a teammate, although everything may have looked different to what you were seeing?
Yeah, it's one of the realities of playing football. And I think the fact that there's a kicker position that's so different from the rest of the game of football, I think, and there are some coaches and old school football people that think this way. That's like, that has no part in the game. Like, I don't like this guy because he plays that position. I could sense that there were certain people in the building that just, no matter what I did, they were never going to like me. And I was just like, whatever. Most people, I think, realize, it just is what it is. This is an important part of the game of football, arguably a top 5 most important position, to the outcome of the game. And they just accept that and they embrace that, hey, it's basically like having a golfer or a soccer player on the team, but we need the guy because the game comes down to him. And, and I was a hard worker, disciplined, and I think my teammates saw my authentic side. So, they knew I was in it for the right reasons.
Steve, talk a little bit about your transition now in terms of what was it like? When did you know your time was up in the NFL? And then how did you start building your entrepreneurial career? I know you're speaking, you're coaching, you're consulting some NFL teams.
So COVID happened. Then we had our second son and the Bills drafted a kicker. That happened all in like a month and a half. So I get to training camp in Buffalo and I was like kicking the ball, I thought pretty decently. And their kicker, Tyler Bass, has a phenomenal leg. And he was hitting 65-yard field goals into the wind. And, I could barely make it from like 51 or 52 into the wind. And I was like, okay, That's interesting. So that kind of was the first thing. And then I got released at the end of training camp, and I was actually dealing with a nagging like back thing. And that whole year was kind of a mess. Like my whole, like I was like very much a routine, steady guy with everything I was doing. And that whole off season like got blown up. So I wasn't really where I wanted to be heading into the season. So then I got signed by Jacksonville. Was on the streets for like 4 weeks, kind of freaking out, like what's going on. Got signed by Jacksonville. I went and played in Jacksonville and like had some like injury issues there, missed a couple kicks, and went home to my family. And I guess COVID probably changed things for a lot of people. I thought I had a bunch of years left in me, but I didn't really want to be doing the free agent, traveling around the country, be away from my family for a couple of years.
I totally understand that.
It was brutal though. Let's be honest. I mean, it's definitely the hard. Like, did you guys go out the way you wanted?
I was lucky. I was one of 5 players I know who called their own retirement, and I played for 10 years. And 2 of the others are DeMarcus Ware and Peyton Manning, right? So, I mean, it doesn't happen like that for a lot of people.
It doesn't.
I got hurt in 2020, rehabbed my shoulder, then got an opportunity to play in San Francisco. But I didn't even want to go to San Francisco, to be honest. I was just like, the injury did it, and then I hated playing during the COVID year. I mean, it was no fans in the stands. It sucked. It was just awful. So, and then I was kind of like fed up. I didn't want to continue to keep moving and doing the free agent, like live out of the suitcase and make the team, and the politics. Yeah, I was over it.
Maybe we would have played a couple more years without the COVID thing.
Yeah.
When you look at what made you successful, Steve, what are the things that you think that have also helped you be successful in your second career? What are the key things about performance that are true across whatever you decide to do?
I'm going to phrase it this way. One of the biggest challenges coming out of playing football has been figuring out what I want to do. Juggling all these different ideas has made it hard to be like super clear about what I want to do. But it's been part of that process to try these different things out. When I was playing football, this like intense clarity around what I'm doing, and then everything it takes to do that, and going into the details and the discipline around that really helped me become great, and like sinking my teeth into all that. Having like this awareness of what you're good at and what you need to improve on, and then finding the resources to help you get better at things that's kind of the most important thing in my mind, is like that awareness of what you're doing well and to like keep doing that, what you need to improve on, and finding resources to do that. And kind of that ability to move in the direction that you want to move in, and being resourceful is, to me, the most important thing.
Well, Steve, man, really appreciate you joining us on the Gridiron and Growth podcast, man. It's incredible to hear some of your stories, the way you've approached life during your football career and then life after football, man. It's truly inspiration, man, and looking forward to continuing to get to know you more and having future conversations. So really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gridiron and Growth with your co-host, Ryan Harris, and myself. Big shout out to Big Up Studios and Streamline Media for all their help with everything that we do. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Please leave a review, and please send us any questions at the gridiron and growth pod@gmail.com.